is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast. We are the podcast helping you optimize feeling and looking your best every single week. If you're new to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. If you're not new, make sure you share it with a friend, coworker, family member. We appreciate all the help. And now in today's podcast.
What is up, everybody? So I haven't done one of these bad boys in a while where I just pop on, give you a life update, hopefully give you some information that benefits you, helps you moving forward. But I just wanted to talk about what's going on. So my life's got a little bit less chaotic recently, which has been nice. My schedule's still really inconsistent with this job, but that's always really how it's going to be while I have it, right? While I'm doing this job, it's always going to be inconsistent, which adds those challenges in there. I'm sure plenty of you listening have similar type things where your schedule is a little bit more inconsistent, and you know that like meals aren't going to necessarily be structured at the same exact time. You kind of got to go with the flow a little bit more. Workouts definitely have to be in the morning for me. You know, I'm doing more workouts from home and actually really learning to love that and getting a lot of good stuff done. I'm also really heavily focusing on like mobility again. So for those of you who have watched or listened to the podcast for a long time, you know that there's been periods of time when I've been heavily focused on mobility work, shoulder mobility, hip, ankle, a lot of that stuff, and doing that on a regular basis. And I realized I got away from it pretty heavily. And my body, like those parts in particularly, my hips, my knees, low back, started to flare up a lot more. And so I've been consistent every day in doing just a simple, easy, like 10 to 15 minute mobility routine. It gets me moving. It also helps me feel better with my, like, especially my hips. I got really fucking bad hips. And so if I'm not on my hip mobility stuff regularly, I just don't feel as good moving around. Right. And I think also what plays into that is nutrition. And I know that the last few months have been probably the worst that I've been with my nutrition in a long time. Right. I got a little bit wayward. The schedule was crazy. I was in a lot of training. I didn't have a lot of time for myself. I didn't have a lot of time to plan and prep meals. And because of that, I started just slowly gravitating towards more and more processed foods, which as you guys know, I've made this reference before. I think Matt's made it before as well. It's a slow drifting process. Like it doesn't happen just overnight where you go from eating like really good quality food, nutritious, more of like a good solid 80%, 90% quality foods. And then all of a sudden it got, for me, closer to maybe 60% coming from quality foods, 40% coming from not as quality, right? And that just like, it does a lot of stuff. Like it affects your stress, it affects sleep. Like I said, it's been affecting like my mobility even, and just how my joints feel and how I feel overall. And so I've really focused the last few weeks on dialing a lot of that stuff in, like really, really being on top of my nutrition a lot more, and just trying to be even more on top of my workouts, right? Because those, like I didn't have as much intention over the last few months with my workouts, and there's going to be periods of time I'm happy that I did get them in and I got something in, and you know, it's almost just trying to maintain the muscle that I have on me to the best of my ability through doing some sort of movement and workout every day. Doing some sort of, make sure I'm prioritizing protein heavily. And that was kind of the only focus on nutrition for me. And so naturally, I started eating a lot more protein bars, for example. Like protein bars came to where I was eating like 3-4 a day, you know, and then that kind of led me to eating just more garbage and not feeling good. And so I'm really, really happy with what I've done here the last few weeks, just putting at the forefront of my mind, getting that workout in first thing in the morning with mobility. Right. And then putting at the forefront of my mind to just start my day off with a really solid meal. But I've kind of just eliminated a lot of the snacks from my day, and I'm just eating meals. And if I do have a snack, I'll add like a Greek yogurt, like just like an extra Greek yogurt with maybe some peanut butter in it or cinnamon or a banana, and just do it that way where it's still like a whole food. Because I'm not saying that I don't eat like more processed foods, but I'm trying to save those, like my less quality food for dessert, because I love eating dessert and trying new desserts with my girlfriend. And so it's really nice. Like that's just a thing that we like to do. Like when we go out to eat, we always grab a dessert. A lot of times when we make a meal together, we have some sort of dessert. And so that's kind of my balance, right? And so what helps me feel my best is if I'm really dialed in with my nutrition around that stuff. And I've definitely seen a huge change just over 2 weeks of doing this. And that just really goes to say like how quickly you can shift things around. You know, it's not an easy, like I've found that like not every season is going to be easy. Like there's going to be really, really hard seasons. The year's a roller coaster, right? There's different things that come up that you didn't expect, family things, work things, personal things, whatever it may be. There's things that come up that just are thrown at you randomly, and it throws off your schedule. It throws off what you're doing. And all of a sudden, like health, fitness, nutrition, workouts start to go a little bit to the wayside. And so what I found is like, I try my best to keep those habits in, but slowly you just sometimes drift away. It's a matter of how quickly can you catch yourself and bring yourself back to where you were, or how quickly can you catch yourself and then start bringing yourself back to where you were. Because I think that a lot of us also have those tendencies to like you drift over the course of 2 months, you might be really, really far away from the habits that you had before. Maybe you still have some of those. I know for me, it wasn't that hard for me to adjust back to what I was doing. It was just some small, simple changes, right? But I've also been doing this for a long period of time, right? I know what works for me. And so it's pretty easy for me to like snap back in. But like sometimes what happens is like, I've seen this before with other people, is that over the course of a year you drift, right? And then you're so far away that it's almost like you're starting over again, right? And that's not to say that can't happen for anybody, but I would just challenge you if that's something that would happen for you, or if that's something that if you're in that position right now, you're like, where you're like, I've drifted super far away from where I was, then I would just challenge you to just start small, right? Start with building these habits back up, the things that Matt and I talk about on a daily basis. Start there and just trust me, like it will change. But if we try to go to that quick fix mindset, the drastic approach, then it's just we're gonna get into that place where we are so far away, and then we're just not able to get back to where we were, right? And so that's all I really wanted to talk about today, was just like some of the main updates with me. I'm feeling good. I'm moving in the right direction. I know the last updates I've had have been like almost the opposite, because I've just been almost in survival mode here for the last 2, even maybe 3 months. And so it's nice to start moving back in the right direction. And it's just something to keep in mind. Like there's like everybody struggles with this. Everybody struggles with moving away from the habits that have helped them feel good and getting into a place where they're more stressed, and sleep's being affected, nutrition's being affected, workouts are being affected. But sometimes all it is just takes that awareness of realizing that you have drifted to start getting back on track. And it doesn't take too long, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, to really start to move heavily back in that right direction. So hopefully this was helpful. I appreciate you all for watching and listening every week. Hope you have a good rest of the day, or rest of the week, and I'll be talking to you soon.